Hey everyone, my name's Jade and I'm a third-year PhD sociology student, and this video is about millennial socialism. So before I define what millennial socialism is, I should first define what regular old socialism is. Now, socialism is a pretty big concept in and of itself, so I made a different, very introductory video defining the concept, which I've linked above. But to summarize this video, socialism can be considered a democratically represented state-controlled economy, whereby the control of the economy is organized around population need opposed to capitalist accumulation, as well as in accordance with the needs and interests of everyday people. At the heart of socialism, I argue, is the belief that society should be organized in a way that benefits everybody. For further explication of what this all means, please check out my other video. But for now, we can build off of this definition to unpack the concept of millennial socialism. There seems to be basically two things that people mean when they refer to millennial socialism. First, they're describing a recent social phenomenon, whereby a growing number of white working to middle class people aged 22 to 37 are identifying as socialists because they're starting to realize that the narrative that they were told as children, i.e. that if they work hard, they'll have a nice house, a good job, and a nuclear family by the time they're 25, is total bullshit. Here, millennial socialism is referring to those millennials who use the rhetoric of socialism to demand the rights and protections that they feel they are owed as hardworking citizens. These millennials are focused not on the actual concentration of the distribution and production of capital, but on either spreading regulatory power around, such as giving workers greater control over their labor, or democratizing specific aspects of the prevailing social order, such as the fight for free healthcare in America. For these socialist-identifying millennials, the democratic aspect of socialism is key. They want a greater say in how society is being organized. They therefore call for state intervention that grants them greater power and authority. However, this understanding of democracy is limited. For them, democracy isn't about leveling the playing field across race, gender, sexuality, class, age, and so on, but flattening an existing playing field rife with injustices that they just don't see. In short, they want equality without equity. So more power and representation for them, but not all. Specifically those who have long been shafted by the systems that they've only recently deemed to be unfair. This kind of mindset is born out of a skeptical disposition towards the free market capitalist systems that have left white working to middle class youths, largely for the first time in their life, in precarious economic positions. Similarly, these youths are more likely to turn to socialism because they believe that the more traditional liberal and conservative parties have failed to protect them from their current economic situation and are thus untrustworthy. And while this disposition is justified, it's not a proper socialist orientation. Rather, it is a rebellious ethos, wherein previously privileged or at least comfortable populations turn to the label of socialism because they see it as an inherent challenge to the economic order that has failed to gain them the success and happiness they were promised as children. Now, the second context in which millennial socialism is used is quite different. Well, this kind of millennial socialism is also born out of a critical disposition towards free market capitalism and big party politics. It more fully aligns with the socialist orientation signaled by my original definition. Crudely speaking, then, we can understand this as actual millennial socialism. In the words of Ben Judah, the slogan, "We are the 99%, defines millennial socialism. Here, millennial socialism is about reorientating the original political and theoretical tenets of traditional socialism, such as the belief in justice for all, the desire for democratic representation, and the altruistic regulation and distribution of wealth and resources, to a modern context in which the gap between the poor and rich has widened, and the working class has been expanded to include those oppressed on the basis of race, gender, sexuality, and so on. Accordingly, unlike the first kind of millennial socialism, these millennial socialists actually believe in the democratic representation of all. As phrased by Judah, intersectionality has convinced this generation feminism is socialism, anti-racism is socialism, LGBTQI is socialism. Their understanding of it is as a democratic process that reverts marginalization through, above all else, voice. This, I would argue, is the most promising aspect of millennial socialism. It's about taking up the liberatory rhetoric of traditional socialism, but in a way that complicates and expands limited orthodox readings of what constitutes a communist revolution. And while still not perfect, the emergence of this kind of socialist politic does signal the increasing political awareness and ethical consciousness among people in my generation. Specifically, we're realizing more and more that 1. Capitalism is by definition oppressive and thus unethical. 2. That oppression is felt in a myriad of complex ways that are not contained to class or even capitalism. And that therefore 3. Capitalism must be eradicated in order to bring about a just world order. But that this eradication is also dependent on the destruction of other oppressive systems, like white supremacy and heteropatriarchy. Basically, millennial socialism, regardless of how effective or accurate it may or may not be, describes the resurgence of a political consciousness forged around the desired liberation for all. So that's my video on millennial socialism. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see similar videos, please subscribe to my channel. See you later!